This will pick your voice up too, right?
Yeah.
To an extent?
Yeah.
Okay, well then you just ask the question and
So
then I'll
you
just
don't-
be like,
So if I'm talking, that's cool?
yeah.
Well, man, I don't know. Do I need to watch the Clone Wars? Because it's a lot.
Yes, and there is no question. Watch the Clone Wars. You will miss out on extraordinarily kick-ass story arcs. It would be like playing Red Dead Redemption or Grand Theft Auto and not doing any side missions at all. There's a lot of really cool stuff that is some very interesting characters. One of the main things I love the most from the prequels was Darth Maul. And a lot of people were really disappointed that he got waxed so quick. He was so close to being Boba Fett. Don't put me at the stake and burn me alive. He's the prequel Boba Fett, and Jango is not. Okay, and I will defend that. See, this is a conversation in and of itself, but you see how I'm already getting excited. Like, Darth Maul was so badass because he barely had any lines whatsoever. He had a double-bladed lightsaber, which the only time I'd ever seen that was Exar Kun. Darth Maul has a brother, Savage Opress, which it's a crazy freaking name. There's Zabrak, that's their species of alien. It gives a little bit more background on why they are the way they are, where they come from. Gets into Dathomir a little bit and Sith witches. Jedi and Sith aren't the only people that necessarily can use the Force. Clone Wars gets into some of that stuff. Darth Maul goes crazy. You know, he gets cut in half, uses the dark side to survive, and builds himself like this pair of kick-ass, like painted black, waist-down Grievous legs. You know, he basically looks like a werewolf, like raptor. But he goes knucking futs. He just goes crazy. And eventually his brother shows up and saves him and, you know, nurses him back to mental health along with this other gal who helps him get his mind back. But so that's a really cool storyline. There's a really, really cool bounty hunter character named Cad Bane, who's a red-eyed Duros, I think his species is called. Big fedora, you know, gas mask, dual-wield pistols, gunslinger type. Very like Clint Eastwood, but an alien. And even if you were to remove a lot of the Star Wars from Clone Wars, it's beautifully animated, it's beautifully voice acted, extremely well written. Like, the way that they differentiate between the clones, like, they start cutting their hair different ways. Some of them have tattoos, they start getting scars, and even some of them start having different syntax, like the way that they talk. And depending on, you know, who they're serving with and where they're from, even some of them have accents, which is kind of funky. But it really delves into a backstory between Anakin and Ben. You know, Anakin was a good friend. You know, like, where did that come from? Where did this best star pilot in the galaxy, you know, but you can even tell the way that Alec Guinness was just like a good friend. You know, like, even though he's Darth freaking Vader, these guys used to be boys, and this show kind of establishes that, where, you know, all right, fist bump, let's do it. You know Anakin is going to become Vader at some point, but Ben is also ultimate good. So for the most part, Clone Wars focuses on their story arc. I was there, Celebration 3, and I remember looking up and seeing these massive posters of, you know, Anakin and Ben standing back to back. And I got to thinking about it, that this is the Star Wars of all these kids. Like, all the kids that are at Celebration with their parents, they're dressing up like stormtroopers and stuff like that. This is their starting point. Like, they were born into a world where the internet already existed, and the OG trilogy, like, those are old movies to them, which is kind of funny to think about. It also focuses on the espionage that Palpatine wields, setting himself up to be this super ruler that, you know, uses the dark side to pretty much just control everything. It really gives some relevance and understanding to who the Separatists were, why the clones were built in the first place, how the foundations of the Empire were set. Yes, it was made for kids, but it was also made with the parents in mind too, because they wanted to make it cool and edgy. Like, either every episode or every other episode, somebody's getting smoked. And it more so establishes the fact that there are losses, there are casualties. This is a war. Also gets really heavy into Dooku and his count status. what he holds dominion over. I honestly have to say, my absolute favorite character from the Clone Wars, and a really good reason to watch it, is Dirge. A lot of people forget about Dirge. So when you see him, you'll know who he is, and he's in the really, really, really early seasons. Just a bunch of really cool story arcs. You can cut it up into bite-sized pieces, so it doesn't take too long to get through it. It's versatile enough that it'll keep you interested. Like, there's one episode that involves Mace Windu that's just badass. Like, it's a little kid that like hands him a cup of water, and he like sips it and like single-handedly takes out an entire legion of like separatist forces, and it's just like pulling bolts out of like 20, 30 robots and throwing all the parts at another, just, it's pretty cool. It shows just how badass Mace Windu is. Go back, it's fun, it's Star Wars. It's what I grew up with, droids on Super Crack. And that's it for Clone Wars. Go watch it.
Okay. Dude, hell yeah. That
What do you think?
Awesome.
Was it
How'd
good?
you feel? Did you like it? Did you
Yeah,
enjoy
that was
doing
fun. That was easy.
Like, that made me go, okay, I'm going to watch it.
That was really easy.
Let me cut
What's
my-
next?